A snowstorm. 40 below. Somewhere in the deep Montana woods, a single cabin holds the last lit window for 100 miles. Smoke leaks from the chimney. The pines bend under the weight of a sky that has not stopped falling for 3 days. Inside, a man in his 40s stands at the stove. 45. Widowed. 5 winters alone. He cracks an egg into a hot pan. His hands are steady. His face is not. Then he hears it, a sound at the door. Soft. Almost not there. The kind of sound a wounded animal makes when it has stopped expecting help. He stops stirring. He listens. The sound comes again. Smaller. Closer to gone. He sets the pan off the heat. He walks to the door. His hand finds the latch. Outside on his porch, 2 shapes lie curled in the snow. Their hair is silver. Their skin is the color of winter sky. They are not human. And somewhere very high above the trees, something else is beginning to descend. The cabin was the only thing standing. Everything else was white. The pines bent low under the weight of snow. The sky had no color. The wind screamed through the trees like something that had lost a child. Hollis Marrow stood at the window. 45 years old. A man who had stopped counting birthdays 5 winters ago. He held a cup of tea. The tea was cold. He hadn't noticed. 5 years. That was how long he had been alone in this cabin. 5 years since the funeral. 5 years since the casserole dishes from neighbors. 5 years since the last hand that had touched his. Marin. He said her name in his head, not out loud. He never said it out loud anymore. Because if he said it out loud, the silence afterward would hurt too much, and he had learned to avoid hurting. The cabin was his father's. His father had been a miner, a hard man. The cabin smelled like cedar and old smoke, and the wool blankets that had been folded in the cedar chest for 40 years. Hollis used to teach high school history in Bozeman, 3 hours away. He had been good at it. Until he wasn't. He set the cold tea down on the windowsill. He went to the fireplace. He added another log. The fire snapped. The flame jumped. The shadows on the wall moved like dancers nobody was watching. He sat in his chair. He picked up a book. He didn't read it. He just held it. Outside, the storm got worse. It was a Tuesday. He didn't know it was Tuesday. He had stopped knowing days of the week. But the calendar on the wall said February 11th, and the calendar on the wall was right. He had been about to make supper. Eggs. He always made eggs. Marin used to laugh and say, "Hollis, you cannot live on eggs forever." And he had said, "Watch me." And she had laughed. He stopped making eggs for a year after she died. Then he started again. Because what else was there? He cracked one into the pan. The butter sizzled. The yellow ran across the iron. He stirred. And then he heard something. A sound. Not the wind. Not the fire. Not the floorboards. Something else. Soft. Weak. Almost not there. He stopped stirring. He listened. The sound came again. From the door. A whimper. Almost. Like a wounded animal. Like a child too tired to cry. Hollis frowned. There was no one out there. There couldn't be. The nearest cabin was 11 miles. The nearest road was 4. In this storm, at this hour, nobody. He set the pan off the heat. He walked to the door. He listened. The sound again. Smaller. His hand went to the latch. His hand stopped. A voice inside him said, "Don't." The voice was old. The voice was the voice of a man who had carried too many things and put them down for good. The voice said, "Whatever is out there is not your problem." He thought of Maren. She would have opened the door. She would have opened it before the second whimper. He opened it. The cold came in like a fist. He squinted against the wind. The snow stung his face. He looked out at the porch, and he saw them. 2 shapes, lying in the snow, curled around each other like animals trying to share heat. But they weren't animals. Hollis stepped onto the porch. The snow was up to his shins. He bent down. His breath caught. The shapes were girls. 2 young women. Their skin was pale blue, like winter sky. Their hair was silver, almost white long, and tangled with frost. Their cheeks had marks. Faint, glowing veins. Soft, like candlelight underwater. They were not human. Hollis stared. For one long second he could not move. His mind said this is not happening. His hands said they're freezing. His hands won. He scooped the smaller one up first. She weighed nothing, like a bundle of birch sticks. Her head fell against his shoulder. Her hair was so cold it burned his neck. He carried her inside. He laid her by the fire. He went back. The other one was heavier, not by much. He gathered her up. Her arm flopped down. Her hand brushed his hand. Her skin was the temperature of metal in winter. He carried her in. He kicked the door shut behind him. The wind howled at the wood. He pulled every blanket from the chest. He piled them on. He boiled water. He brought it close, not too close. He sat down on the floor between them and waited. His heart was making a noise he had not heard in years. It was beating. The smaller one moved first. Her eyelashes were silver. They fluttered. Her lips parted. She made a sound, almost a word, but it was just air shaped like a question. Hollis leaned forward. "You're safe," he said. He didn't know if she could hear. He didn't know if she could understand. But he said it anyway, because Maren would have said it. The girl's eyes opened. They were violet, not blue, not purple. Violet, like a bruise that hadn't decided what color it wanted to be. She looked at him. She blinked. She said one word. "Please." English. Hollis stopped breathing for a moment. "I've got you," he said. "You're inside. You're warm. I've got you." She closed her eyes again. A tear came down her cheek. Just one. It glowed for a second on her skin. Then it was gone. The older one stirred. Her hand moved first. It went to her sister. Her fingers closed around the smaller one's wrist. Even half dead, she was guarding. Hollis watched. He understood that movement. He had seen it on dogs. He had seen it on mothers in waiting rooms. He had seen it on a young soldier once in a documentary who would not let go of his friend's hand, even after the doctor said it was over. This girl was a protector. She opened her eyes. Her eyes were violet too, but sharper, older, eyes that had learned not to cry. She looked at Hollis. She did not say please. She said nothing. She just watched him. Hollis put both hands up. Slowly, like he had done years ago with a frightened student in a classroom that had become too loud. "My name is Hollis," he said. "You're in my cabin. You were freezing. I brought you inside. Your sister is alive. She's right next to you. I'm not going to hurt either of you." The girl's eyes did not change, but her grip on her sister's wrist loosened. A little. He counted that as a win. He gave them water first. Slow sips from a wooden cup, because that was what his mother had done with him when he had pneumonia at 9. The older girl drank like a person who had not seen water in days. The younger one only drank when her sister offered the cup. That told him everything. The older one would not eat first. The older one would not sleep first. The older one was the wall. He warmed soup, just chicken broth from a can. The smell filled the cabin. He saw them both turn their heads at the same time, like flowers turning toward sun. He set the bowls down. 2 of them. The older girl took hers in both hands. Her fingers shook. She sipped. Then she held it out to her sister. The sister tried to refuse. The older one shook her head once. Firm, not unkind, just done. The sister drank. Hollis watched, and something in his chest moved. Because he remembered Marin in the last weeks, how she would push her plate toward him. "Eat, Hollis, you need it more than I do." And he would say, "No." "You eat." And she would smile and say, "I'm not hungry anymore. I'm just tired." And he would lift the fork to her mouth like a child. And she would eat. To make him feel better. He blinked. He went to the cupboard. He brought back bread. He set it down. He sat back. He did not watch them eat, because being watched while eating when you are starving is its own kind of cruelty. He looked at the fire instead. The fire was steady, for the first time in a long time. So was he. The night went on. The storm did not stop. The wind kept beating the windows. The trees outside cracked and groaned. The older girl finally let herself rest. She fell asleep sitting up against the wall, her hand still curled around her sister's wrist. The younger one slept first, properly curled in the blankets like a fox kit. Her breathing was soft, almost normal. Hollis stayed in his chair. He did not sleep. He watched them. He thought. He had so many questions he could not even line them up. They were a crowd in his head. What are they? Where did they come from? How did they get to my porch? Who is looking for them? Why English? Why now? Why meh? He thought of his rifle. He had not cleaned it in months. He had not needed it. He thought I should clean it tomorrow. He thought of the truck. The battery was probably dead. He thought I should check it tomorrow. He thought of Marin. He thought you would have known what to do. The fire popped. A spark jumped onto the hearth. He brushed it back with his boot. The smaller one whimpered in her sleep. He got up. He pulled her blanket higher. He tucked it under her chin. She sighed. She did not wake up. He stood over her for a long moment. Then he went back to his chair. And he watched. And he waited for morning. Morning came thin and gray. The storm had stopped sometime in the night, but the cabin was buried halfway up the windows. Light came in white and flat. The fire was low. Hollis built it back up. He moved quietly. He boiled water for coffee. He cut bread. He fried 2 more eggs. He set the table for 3. He had not set the table for 3 in a long time. His hands shook a little when he put down the 3rd plate. He pretended they didn't. The older girl woke first. He had known she would. She came awake all at once, the way someone wakes when they've been hunted. Her eyes opened and her body locked. He held up a hand. "Coffee," he said. "Are you allowed coffee?" She stared at him. "I don't know what you're allowed," he said. "I don't know what your people drink. So if I give you something that hurts you, you tell me. You point. You make a face. Whatever. Just tell me." A small line appeared between her eyebrows. A thinking line. "My name is Hollis," he said again. "I told you last night, but I don't know if you remember." She remembered. He could see it. "What's your name?" he said. She hesitated. Then, "Aaron." He nodded. He repeated it. "Aaron." She watched him say it, carefully. "And your sister?" he said. "Nyla." "Aaron and Nyla," he said. "I'm Hollis." "There, we're introduced." The smaller one, Nyla, stirred. She opened her eyes. She saw her sister sitting up. She saw the fire. She saw the cup of coffee Hollis had set down. She saw the bread. She started to cry. Quietly, like she didn't know she was doing it. Hollis felt something in his throat. He looked away. "Eat," he said. "Both of you. Please. Eat." They ate. Nyla held the bread like it was glass. She bit it. Her face changed. She chewed slowly. She closed her eyes. "Bread," she whispered, as if naming it. Erin watched her sister eat. Only then did Erin start her own. Hollis stayed standing. He drank his coffee. He pretended to look out the window. Really, he was watching them in the reflection. When Nyla finished her first slice, she looked up at him. Her violet eyes were wet. "You are kind," she said. The words came out careful, as if she had only heard them and never said them. Hollis did not know what to say, so he said, "More bread." She nodded. He cut more. He learned things slowly that morning. He learned Erin spoke better English than Nyla. He learned they had been on the run for what they called 3 turns of your seasons. 3 years. He learned they had picked up English from leaked radio signals that drifted out past the solar system that they had practiced for years on a stolen freighter that they had landed on Earth 8 days ago and walked. 8 days in the snow, in February, in Montana, to his porch. He didn't know how that was possible. "Why my porch?" he asked finally. Erin looked at the fire. She did not answer. He let it go. For now. He gave Nyla one of Marin's old sweaters. It was the gray one with the white cuffs. He had not been able to throw it out. It had hung in the closet untouched for half a decade. He pulled it down, and his throat closed for a second, and then he carried it out and set it in Nyla's lap. "It will be too big," he said, "but it's warm." She lifted it. She looked at it. She looked at him. "Yours," she said. "It was my wife's," he said. The word wife was the heaviest word he had said in a long time. It landed in the room like a stone in a still pond. Erin looked up. Nyla held the sweater against her chest. She lowered her head. "Thank you," she said. Hollis nodded. He walked outside. He needed to chop wood. He needed to do something with his hands. He needed to be away from the room for a minute. He stood on the porch. The cold hit him. He breathed. And then he saw it, the snow. Around the cabin. The snow had been smooth when he had brought them in last night, untouched except for his own boot prints. Now it had marks in it. Symbols, drawn in the snow with something. Fingers, maybe, glowing faintly. A pale blue light like the underside of moonlight. A circle. Inside the circle, a series of curving lines like waves. Inside the waves, the outline of a man. The outline had a small, bright mark over the chest. Hollis stood very still. He had not been outside last night, except to bring them in. He had not made these marks. Then who? He stepped down off the porch. He crouched. He touched one of the lines. The snow was warm. His finger came back with a faint shimmer on it like dust. He looked up at the trees. The trees said nothing. He stood. He went back inside. Nyla was at the window. She had seen him crouching. When he came in, she looked down, like a child caught. "You did this," he said. She nodded. "When?" "In the night," she said. "I went out. Just for a moment. I am sorry. I will not again." "What is it?" he said. She looked at her sister. Erin spoke. "It is a mark of thanks," Erin said. "In our people, when a stranger saves a life, we draw the mark in earth, to tell the old gods. So they will know. This one is a protector. This one should be remembered." Hollis swallowed. "I just opened a door," he said. "You opened more than a door," Erin said. She told him then. A little. She told him they came from a place called the Velthar Dominion. She used the word dominion, like a person who had had it whipped into her. She did not look at him when she said it. She told him they had been born in what she called the breeding stations, where children were not children, where children were grown to serve, to be sold, to be used. She told him they had been chosen for what she called the upper houses when they came of age. She did not explain what that meant. She did not have to. Hollis felt his stomach turn. She told him they had run. 3 years ago. She told him they had been alone in the dark of space for most of those 3 years, eating what they could steal, breathing what they could find, learning English from leaking signals so they would have a chance if they ever made landfall. She told him they had not chosen Earth by accident. She told him they had been following something. He waited. She did not say more. Not yet. He did not press. He looked at Nyla. Nyla was running her fingers along the cuff of Marin's sweater. He looked at Erin. Erin had a scar on her collarbone, in the shape of a letter he did not recognize. He thought they were branded. He thought they were burned. He thought of his classroom 20 years ago teaching 10th graders about the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire, about the Underground Railroad, about every time in human history someone had said these people are not people. He thought of how he used to stand at the front and say, "We do not forget this. We do not forget." He had forgotten. He had forgotten for 5 years. He looked at the 2 women by his fire, and he remembered. His voice was very quiet when he said, "Nobody is taking you back." Erin looked at him. She did not believe him. He could see that, but she nodded. She filed his words away. To use later, or not. The day passed. He showed them how the stove worked. He showed them how to put another log on the fire. He showed Nyla a book, an old picture book with watercolors of Montana wildflowers, and she turned the pages slowly, mouthing the names. Bitterroot, arrow leaf, Indian paintbrush. She said paintbrush, and looked up at him with such wonder that he had to walk into the kitchen for a minute. Erin did not relax. She watched the windows. She watched the door. She watched him. He did not blame her. In the late afternoon, he sat down across from her at the table. He set a cup of tea in front of her. "Erin," he said. She looked up. "You said you were following something to get here." A long pause. "Yes," she said. "What?" She wrapped her hands around the cup. The cup steamed. She did not drink. She looked at the steam. "There is a thing in our old stories," she said. "A kind of light. Not light you can see. Light you can feel. Our people called it the warm trace. It comes from certain humans. Only a few. Across all of time. Only a few." Hollis waited. "Humans who have lost much," Erin said, "but who still choose to love, who still choose to be kind. The grief makes the trace. The kindness shapes it. Then it goes out into the dark, like a candle in a window, for anyone who is lost." She looked at him. "We followed a candle, Hollis." He could not speak. He thought of Marin. He thought of the last time she had held his hand. He thought of how she had said, "Don't go cold. Hollis, promise me, don't go cold." And he had said, "I promise," and he had lied. For 5 years he had lied. He stood up from the table. He walked to the window. He looked out at the snow, at the marks Nyla had drawn, at the soft blue glow that should not have been there. That was there. "I'm not anybody special," he said. He didn't turn around when he said it. Erin's voice came from behind him. "That is what they always say." That night he could not sleep. He sat in his chair by the fire. The sisters slept on the floor in a nest of blankets. Nyla had her head against Erin's shoulder. Erin had her arm around Nyla. They breathed in the same rhythm. Hollis watched the fire. He thought of Marin. He thought of her in the last year, in the last months, when the cancer had taken so much of her that she was mostly eyes. He thought of how she had looked at him from the hospital bed and said, "Hollis, I have to tell you something." And then she had not told him. She had said not yet. He had asked later. He had asked, "What did you want to tell me?" She had smiled and said another time. And then there had not been another time. For 5 years he had wondered. He had built theories. He had buried them. He had built new ones. He had wondered if she had had a secret. He had wondered if she had had regrets. He had wondered if she had been about to tell him she had loved someone before him, or that she wished she had had children, or that she was angry at the world for taking her too soon. He had never landed on an answer. Tonight, watching 2 impossible women sleep by his fire, he wondered for the first time if her secret had been something else entirely. He stood up, quietly. He went to the cedar chest. He opened it. Inside were her things, folded, untouched. The gray sweater was gone now around Nyla's shoulders. Underneath where the sweater had been was a small box. Marin's box. He had been told years ago that this box held her letters from her grandmother and a few photographs from her childhood. He had never opened it. It had felt like privacy, even after she was gone, especially after she was gone. He looked at it. He almost opened it. He didn't. Not yet. He closed the chest. He went back to his chair. The fire crackled. Nyla murmured something in her sleep, a word in a language he did not know. Soft, like a prayer. Hollis closed his eyes. He thought, Marin, what did you do? He thought, Marin, what did you not tell me? He thought, Marin, did you know they were coming? He did not sleep, but he rested. For the first time in a long time, the silence in the cabin was not empty. The fire breathed. The sisters breathed. Somewhere deep under the floorboards of the old cabin, a single point of red light the size of a pinhead blinked once. And then again. And then again. It had been blinking since the night before. Hollis did not know. Not yet. But morning was coming. And with it, a sound from the sky. The fire cracked. He opened his eyes. He looked at the door. He looked at the two sleeping women. He looked at his own hands, which had carried two strangers in from the snow, and which were not shaking. He thought, Marin, I'm not cold anymore. Outside, somewhere very high above the trees, a small black craft was beginning to descend. The next 8 days felt like a season. He learned them, and they learned him, and the cabin learned all three of them. Erin learned to crack an egg. She broke 5 before she got it right. On the 6th one, she did not crush the shell into the pan. She looked at him like she had built a bridge. Nyla learned to button a shirt. Her fingers were long and clever, but they had never done this before. She practiced on one of his flannels. She made a sound halfway between a laugh and a hiccup when she finally got the last button through. He had not heard a laugh in this cabin in years. He had to turn his face away. He taught Nyla the names of the birds at his feeder. Chickadee, Junco, Nuthatch. She repeated them like spells. She especially loved Nuthatch because she said it sounded like a sneeze. Erin watched the door. Always. But sometimes in the evenings when the fire was high and the wind was low, and Nyla had fallen asleep with her cheek on a book, Erin would let her eyes close for a moment. Just a moment. Hollis counted those moments like a man counting coins. On the 5th day, Nyla asked him about Marin. She did it carefully, the way you ask about a wound. She said, the sweater, the wife. What was her name? He was at the stove. He didn't turn around. Marin, he said. Marin, Nyla repeated. He closed his eyes for a second. Tell me, Nyla said. Please, if you can. He turned the heat off under the pan. He came to the table. He sat down. He told them. He told them about a young woman who had been a community nurse in Bozeman, who had loved cold mornings and bad coffee and old country songs. He told them about how she had laughed too loud at funerals and cried too easily at weddings. He told them about the diagnosis. He told them about the year of fighting. He told them about the last week. He told them about the funeral and the casseroles and the silence. He did not tell them about the box in the cedar chest. He did not know why, but he didn't. Nyla cried. Aaron did not. But when he was done speaking, Aaron reached across the table. She put her hand on his. Her hand was cool, but not cold. She said, "Thank you for keeping her with us." He didn't understand what she meant. He didn't ask. On the 7th day, Aaron asked him a question. She asked it at night when Nyla was asleep, when the fire was burning low and the moon was high. She said, "Hollis, do you have things of hers we can see?" He looked up. "Things," he said. "Her things," Aaron said. "Pictures, letters, books she wrote in." He thought of the box. He didn't move for a long time. "Why?" he said. Aaron chose her words. "Because sometimes," she said, "the ones we love leave us instructions, and we do not see them until it is time." He looked at her. She did not look away. He stood up. He went to the cedar chest. He opened it. He took out the box. He carried it to the table. He set it down. His hands were shaking a little now. He did not pretend they weren't. Aaron did not touch the box. She just watched him. "This is hers," he said. "I haven't opened it." "In how long?" "Ever." Aaron nodded slowly. "Maybe tomorrow," she said. "Not tonight. Tonight, you have done enough." He swallowed. He nodded. He put the box on the mantel. He sat back down. He looked at the box. It looked back. On the 8th day, the sky cracked. He was outside. Splitting wood. The morning was cold, but clear. The sun was making the snow look like broken glass. He heard it before he saw it. A sound that was not weather, not animal, not human. A whine. High. Mechanical. Wrong. He looked up. A shape was coming down through the clouds. Black. Smooth. Shaped like a knife held flat. He dropped the axe. He ran. He hit the cabin door so hard, it bounced. "Aaron," he said. "Aaron." She was already standing. She had heard it too. Her face was the color of skim milk. "They are here," she said. Nyla stood up slowly. She did not cry. She did not shake. She just looked at the door. Hollis grabbed the rug. He pulled it back. He yanked open the trap door to the root cellar. "Down," he said. "Both of you. Now." Aaron did not move. "Aaron," he said. "Now." She looked at him. She said very quietly, "If they find us, they will take us. If they take us, you do not want to know what they will do to you." "I know," he said. He did not know, but he said it anyway. She climbed down. Nyla climbed after her. He dropped the trap door shut. He pulled the rug over it. He stood up. He breathed in. He went to the corner. He picked up his rifle. He checked the chamber. He set it back down. He did not want it visible. He went to the door. He waited. The whine outside grew louder. The cabin shook a little. Then, footsteps. 3 pairs. Boots. Heavy. A knock. Hollis put on his most tired face. The face of a 50-something widower who had been bothered. He opened the door. 3 figures stood on his porch. Tall, armored, faces hidden behind dark visors. One of them held a small device the size of a phone, scanning slowly across the front of the cabin. The leader spoke. The voice came through a translator strapped at his throat. It sounded like a man reading a price tag. Human. We seek 2 missing items. Female. Velthar issue. Possibly injured. This area shows residual heat trace, consistent with rest. Hollis blinked at him. I'm sorry, he said. What? 2 females, the leader said. Have you seen them? 2 ladies, Hollis said. Out here, in February. Yes. Hollis let his face do nothing. I haven't seen another person since November, he said. I haven't seen another vehicle since November. You're the first thing that's moved out here besides elk. The leader did not respond. The one with the scanner stepped forward. He pointed the device at Hollis. The device beeped. It beeped again. Then it made a small, confused noise, like a printer that had run out of paper. The leader looked at the scanner. He looked at Hollis. He looked at the scanner. He tapped it. It beeped wrong again. A muscle in Hollis's jaw moved. He kept his face flat. Something wrong with your gadget, he said. Step outside, human, the leader said. I'm in my robe, Hollis said. Step outside. Hollis stepped onto the porch. The wind was sharp. He didn't show it. The scanner came up again, closer, right against his chest. It beeped a long, low, wrong note. The leader was quiet for a moment. Then he said something to the others, in their own language. Quick. Annoyed. He looked back at Hollis. If you see 2 females, he said, you will report, or you will be processed. Do you understand? Hollis said, I don't have a radio. You have a signal flare, the leader said. He held up a small disc. It will activate if you crush it. We will come. He set the disc on the porch rail. Do you understand? He said again. I understand, Hollis said. The 3 of them turned. They walked back to the craft. The craft rose. The wine returned. The shape lifted into the cloud line and was gone. Hollis stood on the porch in his robe. He looked at the small disc on the rail. He looked at it for a long time. Then he picked it up. He carried it inside. He walked across the cabin. He opened the door of the wood stove. He threw the disc into the fire. It hissed. It melted. He shut the door. He pulled back the rug. He opened the trap door. Out, he said. It's over, for now. Aaron came up first. Then Nyla. Nyla was shaking. Aaron was not. But Aaron's eyes were wet, just at the corners. She was furious that he had seen it. She wiped them with the back of her wrist, like she was wiping away an insult. Hollis closed the trap door. He stood in the middle of his own living room. He looked at the 2 of them. He said very steady, They'll come back. Aaron nodded. They'll come back bigger, he said. Aaron nodded again. Then we'd better get ready, he said. Nyla looked at him. Tears were running down her face, but she was smiling. A small, broken, real smile. She walked across the room. She put her arms around him. She pressed her forehead against his chest. She said, You opened the door. He did not know what to say to that. He put one hand on her back, then the other. He held her. Over her shoulder, he looked at Aaron. Aaron looked at him, slowly, like a person who had forgotten how she let her shoulders drop. She walked over. She did not hug him. Not yet. But she put her hand on his arm. She squeezed once, then let go. It was the first time she had touched him without flinching first. That night after they ate, after Nyla had fallen asleep with her head on Aaron's lap, after the fire had burned down to embers, Hollis looked at the mantel. The box was still there. Marin's box. He had been waiting for permission. He realized now that no one was going to give it to him. He stood up. He walked across the cabin. He took the box down. He sat at the table. Aaron watched from across the room. She did not move. She did not speak. She just watched. Hollis put his hands on the lid. He breathed in. He breathed out. He thought of Marin. He thought of the day she had said, "I have to tell you something," and then not yet. He thought maybe now. He opened the box. Inside were letters tied with a faded blue ribbon, a handful of small photographs, the corners curling, a pressed flower, a child's hospital bracelet, probably hers from when she was small, and underneath all of it, a second envelope, cream-colored, not old, his name on it in her handwriting. Hollis. His chest stopped. His hand moved before his brain agreed. He picked up the envelope. He held it under the lamp. Aaron sat up slowly across the room. She knew. She did not speak. Hollis turned the envelope over. On the back, in Marin's neat round letters, she had written one line. "Open this when someone comes to the door." Hollis's eyes filled. His vision blurred. He set the envelope down on the table very carefully as if it might break. He put both hands flat on the wood, one on either side of it. He sat there, and he wept, quietly, without sound, the way a man weeps after years of holding it in. Aaron stood up. She walked across the cabin. She did not touch him. She did not say a word. She just sat down across from him at the table. She put one hand on the edge of the table. She waited with him. The fire cracked. The wind somewhere outside sighed once and stopped. The cabin was quiet, but it was not empty. Not anymore. The envelope sat on the table all night. Hollis did not open it. He wanted to, and he didn't. Both. At the same time. Because here is what he understood, sitting there at 1 a.m. with the fire low and Aaron across from him saying nothing. If he opened it, Marin would be speaking to him again, after 5 years. And if she was speaking to him again, then everything he thought he knew about her last days was wrong. Which meant. He didn't know what it meant, so he just sat. Aaron sat with him. She did not say you should open it. She did not say you don't have to. She just sat. And somewhere around 3 a.m, when his eyes were so heavy, they hurt, she got up. She walked around the table. She put a blanket around his shoulders. Without a word, she went back to Nyla. She lay down beside her sister. She slept. Hollis did not. He watched the envelope until dawn. The days that followed were a strange kind of peace. Outside the cabin, the world was the same Montana world. Snow on the pines, smoke from the chimney. The chickadees fighting over the feeder. Inside, 3 people lived together like they had been doing it for years. Aaron learned to read. She had spoken English from radio waves, but she had never seen the shape of the words. Hollis pulled out a battered paperback from his shelf. To Kill a Mockingbird. He opened to the first page. He pointed at the word Maycomb. He said Maycomb. Aaron said Maycomb. He pointed at was. He said was. Aaron said was. By the end of the week, she was reading sentences out loud. By the end of the second week, she was reading paragraphs. She read very slowly, like the words were food, and she was a person who had been starving so long that she was afraid to swallow too fast. When she got to the part where Scout's father said you never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, she stopped reading. She put the book down. She looked at Hollis. She said, "This is your book of laws." He almost laughed. "It's a novel," he said. "It is your laws," she said. "You teach this to your children." He thought about it. "Yeah," he said. "I guess we do. Or we used to." Erin nodded, like she was filing it away. Nyla learned to bake. Hollis was not a baker. Marin had been. There were 3 cookbooks on the shelf above the stove, all of them dusted with flour from the last time Marin had used them 6 years ago. Nyla pulled them down one afternoon. She opened the middle one. She found a recipe for honey bread. She held the book up to him. "This one," she said. "That's a hard one," he said. "This one," she said. So they baked honey bread. Nyla measured the flour wrong the first time. She measured it right the second. The dough rose. She watched it rise. She put her cheek against the bowl and whispered something to it in her own language. Hollis didn't ask what. When the bread came out of the oven, it was golden. The crust crackled when he cut it. The smell filled the cabin. Nyla took the first bite. She closed her eyes. She said, "This is the best day of my life." Hollis turned around quickly. He pretended to need a dish from the cupboard, because his eyes had filled. Again. "He thought I cannot keep doing this. I'm going to dry up." But he kept doing it. On the 9th night after the soldiers came, Aaron asked him about Marin's hands. They were sitting by the fire. Nyla was already asleep, curled on the rug, one cheek pink from the heat. Aaron said, "Her hands, were they small?" Hollis was surprised by the question. "Small," he said. "Yes, small, strong. She was a nurse. Her hands were strong." "Did she touch you when she said goodbye?" He looked at the fire. "She held my face," he said. "Both hands. Like this." He cupped his own face. He let his hands fall. "She said, 'Don't go cold, Hollis. Promise me. Don't go cold.'" Aaron watched him. "You promised." "I promised. And then?" "And then I went cold." The fire popped. Aaron nodded, not in judgment, in understanding. She said, "You came back." He did not answer. He could not, because if she said one more kind thing to him, he was going to break apart on his own floor. She didn't say more. She just looked at the fire. After a long time, she said, "The envelope." He stiffened. "Aaron, it is yours, not mine. I know." "Then why?" "Because I think," she said carefully, "that she did not want you to be alone when you read it." He turned his head. Aaron was looking at him now. Steady. Violet eyes. She said, "Maybe we are." Why, she put it where she put it. His throat closed. He looked back at the fire. He did not answer. But that night, when he lay down in his bed, He could see the envelope through the doorway, still on the table, still waiting. He thought Marin. What did you do? He thought Marin. I am scared. He thought Marin. I'm going to open it. Soon. I promise. Soon. It was the 11th morning after the scouts came that he finally did. He woke up early, before dawn. The cabin was still dark blue from the window light. The fire had burned down to a coal eye, watching him from across the room. He didn't make coffee. He just walked to the table. He sat down. He picked up the envelope. He looked at her handwriting. Open this when someone comes to the door. He thought somebody came Marin. 2 of them. They were freezing. I brought them in. He thought, please don't be angry. He turned the envelope over. He slid his finger under the flap. The paper gave way like it had been waiting. He pulled out 3 folded pages. He unfolded them. He read, Hollis, my love. If you are reading this, then someone has come to the door, and you have let them in. I knew you would. I have always known you would. That is the thing about you. You think you are a man who built walls. You are not. You are a man who builds doors. I have to tell you something. I should have told you in person, but I was selfish, and I was afraid. I was afraid that if I told you the last years of my life would have been about this thing, and not about us. I wanted us. I wanted every day of us, so I kept it to myself. Forgive me. Please. Hollis stopped reading. He set the letter down. He breathed. Once. Twice. He picked it up. He read. 12 years ago in November, I was driving home from the clinic in Three Forks. It was late. There was sleet. I took the back road by the reservoir. You hated that road. You always said it was haunted. You used to tease me. Remember, I saw something on the bank of the lake. I thought it was a deer that had been hit. I pulled over. It was not a deer. It was a person, Hollis. Only not a person. Or only kind of a person. His skin was gray-blue. His hair was white. And there was a long, deep wound in his side. And he was bleeding something that was not red. He was conscious. He looked at me. He spoke English badly. He said, Please. I did what I always do. I am sorry. I did what I always do. I brought him home. You were in Bozeman that night at the teachers' conference. You were not home for 3 days. By the time you got home, he was gone. I had moved him to the tool shed by then. You never went into the tool shed. His name was Aelvin. Hollis's hands were shaking. He kept reading. He was not from here, Hollis. You will not believe me. But by the time you finish reading this, I think you will. He told me he had been a scout. He had crashed. He told me his people were cruel. He told me his older brother was a man of war and would come looking for him, and that if his brother found him in my care, his brother would not understand. His brother would think I had taken Aelvin on purpose. His brother was the kind of man who could not see kindness because he had never been shown any. So I hid him. I cared for him for 3 months. I tried Hollis. I tried so hard. I gave him every herb in our cabinet. I gave him every prayer in my head. But our air was wrong for him. Our food was wrong for him. He knew it would happen. He told me. He said I will not last. He said this is all right. On the night he died, he was so weak. He looked at me. He said, Marin. He said it like that. Marin. Like the word was a candle. He said, "I want to give you something." I told him no. I told him to save his strength. He smiled at me. He said, "My people have a thing. We call it last wish. It is what we give to the one we love most, the last time we see them. We pass it from our spirit to theirs, so that the light keeps going." He said, "Marin, I have no one I love most. I have only the woman who has not left me alone in the cold." He took my hand, Hollis. He held it. He breathed out one long breath. Something happened in my chest. I felt it. I cannot describe it. It was warm. It was very warm. It was as if I had swallowed a small sun. Then he closed his eyes, and he was gone. I sat with him for a long time. Then I buried him by the lake, in the place you always said was haunted. Maybe you were right. Maybe you felt him there. Maybe that is why you teased me about it. Maybe some part of you always knew. Hollis put the letter down. He pressed both hands flat over his face. He sat like that for a long time. He thought of every time they had driven past the reservoir. He thought of every joke he had made about that road. He thought of how Marin had laughed too quickly, how she had changed the subject, how she had once said, "Hollis, let's not go that way. Let's take the long way home." The long way is prettier. He had teased her about it. She had let him. For 12 years, he picked the letter back up. He told me before he died that the last wish would stay in me, that it would warm me, but that one day I would meet someone who needed it more. He said, "When you do, you give it to him. You will know how." I did not know who he meant. Then I came home, and you were in our kitchen burning eggs, and I knew. Every time I held you, Hollis, every time, I thought of him saying, "Give it." So I gave it. I did not tell you, because how do you tell someone that? I did not understand it. I'm not even sure I believed in it. But I felt it leaving me a little at a time and going into you. Every hug, every hand on the back of your neck, every kiss in the kitchen, every time we fell asleep with my head on your chest. I gave it. And here is the strange thing, Hollis. I was not sad to give it, because it felt like the truest thing I had ever done. He stopped reading again. He looked across the room. Aaron and Nyla were both still asleep. The fire was the same fire. The morning was the same gray morning. Nothing was the same. He read, "I do not know when they will come, Hollis. They might never come. I hope they never come. But Aelvin told me that his brother was not the only one who would notice. He said there were others. He said the last wish leaves a trace. He said sometimes the lost will follow it home. If anyone has come to your door, my love, it is because they are lost. And it is because you are still warm. Do not be afraid of them. Do not be afraid of yourself. Whatever Aelvin gave me, I gave to you. You did not earn it. You did not ask for it. But you carry it, and it is yours to give now. Open the door, Hollis. I love you. I am with you. I am always with you. Marin." He set the letter down. He sat very still. The cabin was very quiet. He could hear Nyla breathing. He could hear Aaron breathing. He could hear his own breath. Slow. Steady. Alive. He had not felt alive in 5 years. He thought Marin. You absolute miracle of a woman. He thought Marin. I am so angry that you carried that alone. He thought Marin. Thank you. He folded the letter. He put it back in the envelope. He pressed his lips to the envelope. Then he stood up, and he walked to the window. And he looked out at the snow, and he understood for the first time why the scanner had not been able to read him. When Erin woke up, she found him at the window. She did not need to ask. She came to him. She stood next to him. She looked out at the same snow. She said, "You opened it." He said, "Yes." She did not ask what it said. He did not offer. But after a long minute he said, "She knew." Erin nodded slowly. "I thought she might. Did you know?" "No," Erin said. "But the trace we followed was old, older than 3 years. We thought it was made by you, but it had layers." He looked at her. "Layers," he said, as if someone had been adding to it. He breathed out. "Yes," he said, "someone was." Erin's eyes filled, just a little, just at the corner. She said, "She must have loved you very much." He could only nod. He told Nyla over breakfast. He did not show her the letter. He just said there was someone. A long time ago. He was hurt. Marin took care of him. He gave her a kind of warmth before he died. She gave it to me without telling me. Nyla's eyes went very wide. She said, "Elvin." Hollis stopped. He had not used the name. Nyla put both hands over her mouth. Erin said, "Nyla, how?" Nyla shook her head. She was crying again. She was crying so often, this child. But it was not weak crying. It was the crying of a person who had been forbidden tears her whole life and was finally allowed. She said, "In the stations. We were told the old stories. Elvin was a name in the old stories. He was a scout who was lost. His brother went mad looking for him. We were told this so that we would understand. That escape was foolish, that nothing came back from the cold." She looked at Hollis. "Elvin was not a story," she said. "Elvin was real." "Elvin was real," Hollis said, "and your wife." Sat with him until the end. Nyla turned to her sister. She said something in their language. Fast, soft, reverent. Erin answered just as quietly. Then Erin turned to Hollis. She said, "Hollis, this changes things." He nodded. "The brother of Elvin is alive," she said. "Marin said so. His name is known to us. His name is Drax." Something moved in Hollis's stomach. "He is the one who hunts," Erin said. "He is the one who would come." Hollis sat down on the edge of the table. He said, "Then he is coming." Erin said, "Yes." Nyla said, "And he will not be looking only for us." The three of them sat in silence. The fire cracked. Hollis put his hand over his eyes. He said almost to himself, "She knew, and she still didn't tell me. She didn't want me to be afraid of every shadow for 12 years. Erin said very gently, "She wanted you to live the years she had with you." He could not answer. He just nodded. He spent the next 2 days getting ready. He did not tell himself he was getting ready for war. He told himself he was fixing the place up. He cleaned the rifle. He oiled the hinges. He checked the root cellar for leaks. He pulled out the old crate of mining caps his father had left in the shed and counted them. 6. Not many, but 6 was something. He walked the perimeter of the property. He marked the places where someone could come up from the trees without being seen. He sank tripwires into the snow. He hung lanterns. He set the old motion bell he used for bears. Erin worked beside him. She had been trained. He didn't ask her how. She didn't tell him. Nyla worked too. She didn't have training, but she had her gift. She could feel the energy of living things. She walked the woods with her eyes closed sometimes, her hands out listening. Once she said there is a fox in that hollow. He went to look. There was a fox in that hollow. He started trusting her ear. He started trusting both of them. He had not trusted anyone in 5 years. He had forgotten he could. On the second evening of preparing, Erin sat across from him at the kitchen table. She had a knife and a whetstone. She was sharpening the knife in slow, even strokes. She did not look up when she spoke. She said, "Hollis, I have to tell you something." He waited. "In our culture," she said, "when two sisters have been saved together by the same man, and when both choose him, they may give him something." He set his coffee down. "Erin, let me finish." He let her. She kept sharpening. She said, "It is not marriage, not the way you have it. It is older than marriage. It is a stone bond. 2 stones, given to one. The man becomes the keeper. The sisters become the kept. It is a promise. It is a roof. It is a we will not be alone." She put the knife down. She reached into the small pouch on her belt. She took out 2 stones. One was red. One was blue. They were both about the size of a robin's egg. They both glowed very faintly in the lamplight, not like batteries, like something alive. She set them on the table. "We have carried these," she said, "since we were children. They were our mothers. They were the only thing we took when we ran." Hollis looked at the stones. He looked at her. She did not look at him. She said, "Nyla and I have spoken. We have spoken every night. We have agreed." He swallowed. "Erin," he said, "I know what you are going to say. I'm 45 years old. I know. I had a wife. I know. I don't even know what your year looks like. I don't know how old you are in human years. I don't know if you eat the same things as me forever, or if you fall apart on Earth food in a decade. I don't know anything." She finally looked up. Violet eyes. Steady. She said, "Neither do we." He stopped. She said, "Hollis, we are not asking you to be our husband in the Earth way. We are not asking you to love us in the Earth way. We are asking you to be the man who does not let go. The roof, the fire, the door." She paused. "You have been that," she said, "since the night we came." He looked at the stones. He thought of Marin. He thought of her letter. "It is yours to give now." He thought she would not be angry. He thought she would be glad. He thought she would say, "What took you so long, Hollis? Take the stones." He looked up. He said, "Where is Nyla?" Erin said, "She is outside. She did not want to be in the room when I asked, in case you said no. She did not want you to see her face." He stood up. He went to the door. He opened it. Nyla was sitting on the top step of the porch. Her back was to him. Her shoulders were curled. She was hugging her knees. "Nyla," he said. She did not turn. He stepped onto the porch. He sat down beside her. He didn't say anything for a moment. Then he said, "Hey." She still did not turn. He said, "Look at me. Please." She turned her head a little, just enough. Her cheeks were wet. He said, "I'm not saying no." Her eyes opened wide. He said, "I'm not saying yes either. Not yet, because I want to say it inside with both of you, and with the fire, and with the stones on the table. Not out here in the cold." "All right," she nodded. Fast, like a child being given permission. She wiped her face with both hands. He stood up. He held out his hand. She took it. He pulled her up. He walked her inside. Inside, Aaron had not moved. The stones were still on the table. Hollis walked Nyla to the table. Nyla sat down on one side. Aaron on the other. Hollis sat at the end. He looked at both of them. He said, "I have to say something first." They waited. He said, "I had a wife. Her name was Maren. She died 5 years ago. I loved her more than anything in this world. I will love her until I die. That does not change. That cannot change. Do you understand me?" Aaron said yes. Nyla said yes. He said, "And." He stopped. He looked at the fire. He looked back. "And," he said, "she wrote me a letter. Before she died. She told me to open the door. She told me to be warm. She told me it was mine to give." Aaron's eyes filled. Nyla's hand went to her mouth. He said, "So I am going to take the stones, not as a husband in your earth way, not as a husband in any way that touches what I had with Maren, but as the man who does not let go, as the roof, as the fire, as the door that does not lock." He picked up the red stone. He picked up the blue stone. He held them in his palm. They were warm. Aaron made a small sound. Not a sob. Something smaller. Like a person who had been holding her breath for years, finally letting it out. Nyla started crying for real now. Loud. Childlike. Relieved. Aaron reached across the table. She put her hand over Hollis's hand. Nyla reached across too. Her hand went on top of Aaron's. 3 hands, one on top of the other. On the table. By the stones. Hollis closed his eyes. He thought Maren. I hope you can see this. I hope you can see what you started. I hope you are not jealous. I hope you are proud. I hope you know I am still yours. I hope you know there is more than one way to keep a heart full. He opened his eyes. He said very simply, "All right." Outside, somewhere very far up, a small light was moving against the dark of the sky. Hollis did not see it. But Nyla, who could feel things, lifted her head suddenly. She looked at the window. Her smile faded. She said, "Someone is coming." Aaron's hand tightened on Hollis's. He stood up. He walked to the window. The night was clear. The stars were out. The Milky Way was a spilled cup across the sky. And right at the edge of it, very high, a single point of light was moving wrong. Moving down. Not toward the cabin. Not yet. Toward somewhere out near the road. Almost gentle. Like it was choosing where to land. He watched. The light slowed. It hovered. Then it set down. Out past the ridge. Out of sight. A few minutes passed. Then a single figure walked out of the tree line. Not 3. 1. Tall, armored, no helmet. A woman. She walked across the clearing without sinking into the snow. She stopped at the edge of the porch light. She did not raise a weapon. She raised one hand. Empty. Palm out. She called out, "My name is Visha. I am not here to take them. I am here to warn you. Open your door." Hollis looked back at Aaron. Aaron's face had gone very still. She said only one word. "Visha." He said, "You know her." She said, "Yes." He said, "Is she on our side?" She said, "I do not know." He turned back to the window. The woman in the snow waited. She did not move. She did not threaten. She just waited. Hollis breathed. He thought of Marin's letter. "Open the door, Hollis." He walked to the door. He put his hand on the latch. He looked back one more time. At Aaron. At Nyla. At the 2 stones on the table faintly glowing in the firelight. He opened the door. The cold came in. The woman in the snow looked up. Her eyes were gold, not violet. Gold. Like a hawk's. She said, "Hollis Marrow, you have to listen to me. He is 3 days behind me. Maybe less." Hollis swallowed. "Who?" "Drax." The word landed in the room like a thrown stone. Vesha stepped forward into the porch light. Up close, she was older than the others. Not old, just lived in. There were lines at the corners of her eyes. There was a scar across her chin. She said, "I served under him for 20 years. I have walked off his ship. I have brought what I know. I have brought what your wife was never told." Hollis felt the floor tilt slightly under him. He said, "My wife." Vesha looked at him with something almost like grief. She said, "Yes, your wife, Marin, the one who sat with Elvin." Hollis put his hand on the doorframe. He had to. He said, "How do you know that name?" Visha said, "Because Elvin sent a message before he died. He sent it to his brother. It never reached his brother. I intercepted it. I have kept it for 12 years. Waiting." She reached slowly into the pouch at her side. She drew out a small disc, like a coin but warmer. She held it out. She said, "Elvin left a message for the woman who saved him. She never heard it. She died before I could find a way to bring it to her." Hollis stared at the disc. His mouth was dry. He whispered, "What does it say?" Visha looked at him steadily. She said, "It says thank you. And it says one day your husband will need it. When that day comes, be ready." The wind moved through the trees behind her. The cabin was silent. Visha glanced back at the empty sky. She said, "There is more you need to know. There is a council above Drax, older than him, wiser. I have been bringing them what he hides. They have been slow to listen, but they listen now. They are coming too." Hollis looked down at the small, warm disc in Vesha's open palm. His hand was shaking when he reached for it. He took it. Behind him, Aaron and Nyla stood from the table. The 2 stones on the table glowed a little brighter, and in the high, cold sky above the Montana woods, 3 days away, and closing fast, a black ship was beginning to turn its nose toward Earth. Hollis closed the door. He looked at the disc in his hand. He looked at his new family. He looked at the envelope on the mantel. He said very quietly, "All right, Marin, all right." And he carried the message to the fire to listen. The disc was warm in his hand, warmer than it should have been. Hollis sat by the fire. The disc rested in his palm like a small living thing. Aaron sat to his left, Nyla to his right. Visha stood by the door, watching the night, watching for things Hollis could not yet see. He looked at the disc. He did not know how to make it speak. Vesha said without turning, "Press the center with your thumb, then add his name." He pressed. His thumb went down on the soft, warm metal. He whispered Aelvin. The disc lit up. A soft blue light rose from it. The light filled the air above his palm. The light shaped itself slowly into the figure of a face, not solid, not ghostly, something in between, a face made of breath. The face was pale, the hair was white, the eyes were closed. Hollis stopped breathing. The eyes opened. The face spoke. The voice was very weak. The voice was a man who knew he was dying. The voice was English. Broken English. Careful English. The kind you teach yourself in the dark. "Marin," the face said. Hollis flinched. She was not in the room, but the voice said her name anyway, because it had been sent to her 12 years ago. The face said, "Thank you for the warm room, for the soft hands, for not being afraid." The face was silent for a moment, like it was choosing the next words carefully, like it had only a little air left. "I am sorry I could not stay. The air here is sweet, but it is not mine." The face smiled, faintly, the way a very tired person smiles when they remember something good. If you are hearing this, someone has come in from the cold. Someone has needed what I gave. Tell him this. Tell my brother, if you ever see him. The face paused. Tell Drax that his little brother was held, that his little brother was not alone in the end, that his little brother said his name, that his little brother was sorry. Aelvin's voice was almost gone now. He whispered, "Marin, thank you. Marin, goodbye." The face went out. The blue light folded back into the disc. The disc went cool in Hollis's hand. The cabin was silent. The fire snapped once. Nyla was crying, quietly, like a person watching a sunrise. Erin's eyes were wet, but her face was stone. Hollis sat very still. He could feel it now, the warmth in his chest, the thing Marin had given him. Every night, for years, without telling him, without explaining, just hugs in the kitchen, just hands on the back of his neck, just a small sun passing slowly mouth to mouth. He breathed in. He breathed out. He said to no one in particular, "Okay." He stood up. He looked at Vesha. He said, 3 days. Vesha said, "Maybe less. Maybe 2. He said, "Then we have work to do." They did not sleep that night. Aaron sharpened blades. Vesha drew maps on the back of Hollis's grocery receipts. Nyla sat by the fire with both hands on her temples, eyes closed, listening to the woods, listening for the energy that was coming. Hollis went outside. The stars were sharp. The moon was a thin curve. The cold was the kind of cold that wakes you up. He breathed it in. He let it sting his lungs. He did not want softness right now. He went to the shed. He brought out the mining caps, the wire, the old hand-cranked detonator his father had used in '76. He laid them out in the snow like a man laying out a hand of cards. He thought about Drax. He thought about a man who had been looking for his brother for 12 years. He thought about how, if it had been him, if Marin had been the missing one, and someone else had buried her by a lake without telling him, he might have gone mad too. He thought Drax is not evil. Drax is wounded. He thought, but a wounded man with a fleet is still a man with a fleet. He bent down. He started rigging the first trap. By the time the sun came up, the woods had teeth, wires under the snow, caps in tree roots, a line of fishing line running between two pines at neck height, a pile of split logs balanced on a slope, waiting. Hollis came back inside. He did not look like himself. There were shadows under his eyes the size of bruises. His hands smelled like gunpowder. His coat smelled like pine sap. He looked like a man who had been a husband and a teacher and a hermit, and now also something else. Visha looked up from the table. She said, "Hollis." He said, "Yeah." She said, "When he comes, he will not come for them first." He stopped. He said, "I know." She said, "He will come for you." He said, "I know." She watched him. She said, "You are not what he expects. He expects a frightened man in a wooden house. He expects to feel powerful when he steps onto your porch." She paused. She said, "Do not let him feel powerful." He nodded. He went to the cupboard. He poured 4 cups of coffee. He set one in front of each of them. He sat down. He said, "Tell me about him." Visha looked into her coffee. She said, "He used to be kind." That was the first thing she said. He waited. She said, "When I knew him as a young officer, 40 years ago, he was kind. He was the brother who carried his little brother on his shoulders. He was the brother who made his little brother laugh. He was the brother who promised, 'I will always come for you.'" She drank. She said, "Elvin crashed in a storm. Drax was on patrol 2 systems away. He came home. There was no body. There was no ship. There was only static and a long silence." She set the cup down. She said, "He looked for 12 years. She said, 12 years is a long time to be afraid for someone you love. The fear does not stay fear. It turns. It rots. It becomes something else." Hollis nodded slowly. He said, "And then he found out." "He found out 3 weeks ago," Visha said. "He intercepted a fragment of a transmission. It led him to a star map. The map led him to Earth. The Earth coordinates led him to Montana." Hollis put both palms flat on the table. He said, "He's not coming for the sisters. He's coming for the cabin." Visha said, "He's coming for the woman who was in it, and finding her gone, he will settle for the man she gave the gift to." The fire cracked. Erin spoke from across the room. She said, "Then we will not let him have either." The first ship came on the morning of the second day. It came at dawn. Hollis was outside, drinking coffee on the porch, watching the line of the sky. He saw it, a black shape against the pink east, larger than the scouts, smaller than the warship he had been told to expect. He said very calmly, "Aaron." She came to the door. She looked. She said, "Advance party. Maybe 10. He said, "Get Nyla low. You and Vesha take the east windows." She said, "Where will you be?" He said, "On the porch." She said, "Hollis." He said, "On the porch." She did not argue, because she had seen his face. He stood on the porch as the ship came down. He held his rifle loose, at his side. Not raised. He wanted them to see him. He wanted them to see a man. The ship landed in the clearing. Snow blew up around it in a white wall. The wall settled. A ramp came down. 10 figures stepped out. Tall, armored, black visors. Not Drax. He could see that immediately. There was no one tall enough, no one slow enough, no one alone enough. These were just soldiers. He breathed out. He waited. The leader stepped forward. He had a translator at his throat. He said, "Human, step away from the structure. The structure will be searched." Hollis said, "No." The leader said, "This is not a request." Hollis said, "I know. I'm still saying no." The leader raised a weapon. Hollis pulled the wire in his coat pocket. The first cap went off 10 feet behind the soldier in the snow. It was a small bang, but it was enough. The soldier flinched. That was when Aaron shot the first one through the east window. What happened next was not a battle. It was a clearing. A man like Hollis cannot win against 10 armored soldiers in open combat. He knew that, so he did not fight them in the open. He fought them with the woods. He fought them with the snow. He fought them with 20 years of his father's stories about mining accidents and how to make a tree fall on a man who didn't deserve a tree falling on him. The fishing line at neck height took 2 of them. The log pile on the slope took 3. Aaron took 2 from the window with quick, precise shots. Nyla in the cellar pressed her hands against the floorboards and whispered the positions of the others up through the wood. Hollis heard her like she was right next to him. 2 by the east tree, 1 by the wood pile, 1 climbing. Vesha took the climber. Hollis took the 1 by the wood pile. Aaron took the last one as he tried to retreat to the ship. Then the clearing was quiet. 10 figures in the snow. Smoke from one of the trees. A ship with no crew left to fly it. Hollis stood in the snow, breathing hard. His hands shook now. His coat smelled like gunpowder and pine sap, and something else he didn't want to name. He turned to the cabin. Aaron opened the door. She was pale. She said, "Are you hit?" He looked down at himself. There was blood on his sleeve. He did not remember being hit. He said, "I think a piece of bark caught me. I'm fine." She came down off the porch. She walked through the snow. She lifted his sleeve. She said, "A graze." He said, "I'm fine." She said very quietly, "You are not." He looked at her. She looked at him. She said, "But you will be." She walked him back to the cabin. That was the first wave. The big one was still coming. They had 4 hours. Nyla could feel him now. Drax. She said his approach was loud. She said it was loud the way grief is loud. She said he is not silent like the others. He is a man who is screaming on the inside. Hollis sat at the table with her. He said, "Tell me when he lands." She said, "I will tell you when his ship enters the air." He said, "Tell me everything you can feel." She closed her eyes. She said, "He has not slept. Not really. Not in many years. He has been ready every day. He hates that he is ready. He wishes he could stop being ready. He cannot." She opened her eyes. They were wet. She said, "Hollis, he is like you were, before us." Hollis closed his eyes. He thought of Marin. He thought of course he is. In the last hour before Drax came, Hollis took Marin's letter from the mantel. He read it again. He read it standing at the window. He read the part about Elvin, about the tool shed, about the road by the reservoir, about how she had not wanted the last years of her life to be about this thing. He folded the letter. He put it in his inside coat pocket, over his heart. He thought, "All right, Marin, I'm wearing you into this." He turned around. Aaron was at the table, loading the rifle. Quiet. Nyla was at the window, watching the sky. Visha was at the door, watching the road. He said, "I want to say something." They looked at him. He said, "If this goes wrong." Aaron said, "Hollis." He said, "Let me say it." She nodded. He said, "If this goes wrong, you two run. Visha will get you out. There is a small craft in the trees east of here. It will take you to Vesha's people. You do not stop. You do not come back for me. Do you understand?" Nyla said no. He said, "Nyla." She said no. She was crying. He walked to her. He put his hands on her shoulders. He looked into her face. He said, "Listen to me. I have lived. I have had a wife. I have had a quiet life. I have had this last beautiful winter with you and your sister. If I do not walk out of this, I have already lived. Do you hear me?" She shook her head. He said, "Nyla, you are 22 years old. You have just learned how to laugh in a kitchen. You will live a long time. You will live a long, long time. And you will tell people about a man you knew in the snow." She broke. She put her arms around him. She buried her face in his coat. He held her. He looked over her head at Aaron. Aaron's jaw was set. Aaron said, "I am not running." He said, "Aaron." She said, "I will fight beside you until the last." He said, "Aaron, please." She said, "No." He did not argue, because he had known before he asked that she would say that. He nodded. He said, "All right." The sky cracked at 4 in the afternoon. Not a storm crack. A ship crack. Nyla said very softly, "He is here." Hollis went to the window. The ship was bigger than the first one. Not a warship. Not the mountain Vesha had described. Something in between. A long black shape. 2 engines. 1 command pod. Stripped down for speed. He had come fast. Faster than they expected. He had come alone. Almost. A few guards. But mostly alone. The ship hovered above the clearing. The ship set down. The engines died. A ramp came down. A figure walked off. Tall. Half a head taller than the soldiers. Black armor. No helmet. Half the face was metal. The other half was a man. The man's side of the face was old. Older than Hollis. Tired in a way Hollis recognized. Drax walked to the center of the clearing. He stopped. He looked at the cabin. He raised one hand. 4 guards stepped off the ramp behind him. They stayed there. They did not advance. Drax called out. His voice was not metallic, not translated. He spoke English. Slow English. Careful English. The kind a man learns over many years in small pieces from fragments of signals that drift across the dark of space. The kind a man learns just in case his little brother had landed somewhere that spoke that language. He had been learning it for 12 years. He said, "Hollis Marrow, come out of the house. Bring nothing in your hands." Hollis looked back into the cabin. Aaron was at the side window, rifle ready. Nyla had her hands pressed to her temples again, listening. Vesha stood by the back door, ready to move them out. Hollis put on his coat. He patted the inside pocket. The letter was there, over his heart. He walked to the door. He opened it. He stepped out. He raised both hands. He walked down the porch steps. He walked into the snow. He stopped 20 feet from Drax. Drax looked at him. Drax looked at him for a long time. Drax said, "You are the husband." Hollis said, "Yes." Drax said, "She is the one." Hollis said, "She was the one." "Yes." Drax said, "She is dead." Hollis said, 5 years. Drax was silent. A muscle moved in the human side of his face. Drax said, "Then I have come too late to take from her what she took from me." Hollis said, "She did not take him, Drax." Drax went very still. The use of his name. Hollis kept going. His voice was steady. He didn't know how. He said, "Your brother crashed by a lake. He was bleeding. Maren stopped her car. She brought him home. She kept him alive for 3 months. She tried everything. Our heir is not your heir." He told her he was going to die. She held his hand. Drax did not move. Hollis said, "Before he went, he gave her something. He called it last wish. He told her to give it to someone she loved. She gave it to me. She did not tell me. For 12 years, she did not tell me. Because she did not want me to be afraid every day for 12 years. She wanted me to live." Drax's hands were at his sides. His hands were shaking. Hollis said, "Aelvin did not die alone. Aelvin died in a warm room, with a hand in his." Drax's eyes did something then. Not water. Not yet. Just a kind of breaking. He said very quietly, "You lie." Hollis reached into his coat. Drax's hand went to his weapon. Hollis stopped. He said, "Letter. From my wife, in my pocket. May I?" Drax did not lower his hand, but he did not raise it either. He nodded once. Hollis drew out the letter. Slowly, he held it up. He let Drax see his wife's handwriting on the envelope. He said, "She wrote it before she died. I opened it 3 days ago. It tells me about your brother. It tells me everything." He took 2 steps forward. Drax did not move. Hollis took 2 more. He held out the letter. Drax stared at it. He did not take it. He whispered, "If I take that, I cannot put it down." Hollis said, "I know." A long silence. The wind moved across the snow. Drax did not take the letter, but he did not raise his weapon either, and that was when the second ship came. Not Drax's. A new one. It came down through the clouds with no sound at all. It was small. It was the shape of a teardrop. It was the color of nothing. Drax saw it. His face changed. He said almost to himself, "No." Visha came out of the cabin then. She walked down the steps. She walked past Hollis. She stopped beside him. She raised one hand. The teardrop ship hovered. A panel opened. A figure stepped down. Then another. Then another. 6 figures. Not Velthar soldiers. Not Drax's people. Their armor was white. Their faces were uncovered. A woman stepped down last. She was old. She had silver hair. She had a mark on her temple that glowed gently, like Nyla's mark, like Aaron's mark. She walked across the snow. She stopped in front of Drax. She said, "Commander." Drax stood up straighter, by a finger. She said, "The council has voted. The evidence Visha brought has been weighed. You are recalled." Drax did not answer. She said, "You held thousands of marked persons without trial. You falsified hunt records. You acted alone beyond your authority. You will return with us. You will answer." Drax looked at Vesha. He said in a voice that did not sound like a commander at all, "You did this." Vesha said, "Yes." He said, "When?" She said, "I have been collecting since the year Elvin was lost. I started by accident. I kept going by choice." Drax closed his eyes. His shoulders under the black armor sagged a fraction. Just enough. Then his eyes opened. His hand moved to his weapon again. Hollis saw it. Aaron in the window saw it. Nyla in the cabin saw it without her eyes. Drax raised the weapon. He aimed it at Hollis. He said, "If I cannot have an answer, I will take an ending." Aaron moved. She came through the door so fast she almost broke it. She did not have her rifle. She had nothing. She just ran. She ran straight at Hollis. She put her body between him and the weapon. Drax fired. The shot was a line of light. It hit her in the chest. She fell. Hollis caught her. He went down with her. He went to his knees in the snow. He held her. She looked up at him. She tried to speak. She could not. Blue blood came from the corner of her mouth. He said, "No, no, 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 no." He said, "Aaron." He said, "Aaron. Look at me. Look at me. Stay. Stay. Stay." Behind them, Visha was already moving. The council guards had Drax on the ground. He did not fight. He had used the last of himself to fire that shot. He went down like a building collapsing. Hollis did not see it. Hollis only saw Aaron. He pressed his hand over the wound. He thought, "Please, please, please." And he felt something move in his chest. The warmth. The last wish. He had not known how to use it. He had not known he had it. He had only carried it. But Nyla. Nyla came out of the cabin. Nyla ran across the snow. Nyla dropped to her knees on Erin's other side. Nyla put one hand on her sister's chest. She put the other hand on Hollis's chest. She said, "Now." He did not know what she meant, but his body did. He felt the warmth lift, the way a candle flame lifts when a window opens. It rose out of his chest. It moved into Nyla's hand. It moved through her and out her other hand and into Erin. Erin's body arched once. She gasped. Color came back into her face. The blood at her mouth stopped. Her eyes opened. She looked up at Hollis. She was alive. Hollis put his forehead against hers. He could not speak. He could only breathe. Nyla was crying. Erin lifted one trembling hand. She put it on the back of his head. She whispered, "You opened the door." He whispered, "You came in." They lifted her, carefully, Visha and Hollis together. They carried her back into the cabin. They laid her by the fire. The council healer came in. She looked at Erin. She nodded. She said, "She will live." The warmth held her. Hollis sat on the floor beside Erin. He held her hand. He did not let go. Nyla curled on her sister's other side. She did not stop crying. But it was a different crying now. The crying of a child who has not lost what she thought she had lost. Outside, the council ship lifted with Drax sealed inside it. Visha stayed. The teardrop ship lifted too. The clearing went quiet. The sun started to come down. That evening, Visha sat with Hollis on the porch. Erin was asleep on the rug by the fire, Nyla beside her, both wrapped in every blanket in the cabin. Vesha had a cup of coffee in her hands. The cold had made her cheeks pink. She looked almost human in that light. She said, "He will be tried." Hollis said, "I know." She said, "He will not be killed." Hollis said, "Good." She looked at him. She said, "You did not want him dead." He said, "I have buried enough people." She nodded. She watched the sky. She said, "He asked me one thing before they sealed the ship." Hollis waited. She said, "He asked me if it was true, about the warm room, about the hand in his." Hollis felt his throat tighten. He said, "What did you say?" She said, "I told him yes. I told him your wife sat with his brother until the end. I told him his brother was not alone." Hollis closed his eyes. She said, "He cried, Hollis." He nodded. She said, "He cried for a long time." He said, "Good." She said, "Yes, good." She drank her coffee. After a while she said, "Your wife? She was a kind woman." He said, "Yes." She said, "Kindness travels farther than the kind person can see." He said, "Yes." He looked at the sky. He said, "I think she knew that." 6 weeks later, the snow started to go. It went slowly. Late March in Montana does not let go easily. But the eaves dripped. The chickadees changed their song. The aspens by the creek began to think about it. Hollis stood on the porch in his shirt sleeves for the first time since November. Inside, Nyla was baking. The bread smell came out the open door. She had moved on from honey bread. Now she was on cinnamon. She had found Marin's old tin of cinnamon 6 years past expiration. She had said, "It still smells like itself." Hollis. So she used it. Inside, Erin was reading. She had finished the Mockingbird book. She had moved on to a book of poems Marin had left on the shelf. She read them out loud sometimes. Slow. Careful. Like she was tasting each word. The stone bond hung at Hollis's neck, the red stone and the blue stone on a leather cord against his sternum. They were always warm, not hot, just warm, like a small hand that was always there. He had not stopped missing Marin. He thought, "I will never stop missing her." But he also thought, "I'm not missing her alone anymore." He looked at the candle on the table inside. He had lit that candle every night for 5 years. One candle. For Marin. Every night. He walked inside. He went to the table. He stood in front of the candle. Erin looked up from her book. Nyla looked up from the bread. He did not say anything. He just looked at the flame. He thought, "Marin, I will hold you in me, every day until I die. You do not need this candle anymore. You are not in this flame. You are in my chest. You are in their lives. You are in the bread that girl is making with your cinnamon. You are everywhere I look." He bent down. He blew the candle out. The thin smoke rose. It curled. It went up. It went out the open window. Up over the porch. Up over the pines. Up into the soft gray Montana sky. It was gone. He stood there a moment. He did not cry. He had cried enough. He just smiled. A small, quiet, real smile. The smile of a man who has finally put down something heavy he had been carrying. He turned around. Erin was watching him. Nyla was watching him. Erin said, "Come and read with me." Nyla said, "Come and try the bread." He said, "I will." Both. He walked over to the table. He sat down. Outside, somewhere very high, the first geese of the year were flying north. He could not see them, but he could hear them faintly calling to each other, the way geese call across a sky, the way anything in a sky calls across to anything else. "I am here. Are you there? I am here. I am here." The fire snapped. The bread cooled. The book opened. And the man who had once been frozen in a cabin in the middle of the woods sat down to read a poem with one of the sisters who had walked out of the snow, while the other one cut bread that smelled like a woman he had loved for 25 years. And behind him on the mantel, the envelope from Marin rested with her handwriting, facing out. "Open this when someone comes to the door." He had. He had opened the door, and the warmth that had come in had stayed, and the warmth that he had carried had moved on. And somewhere in a sealed ship, traveling between stars, a man who had spent 12 years looking for his brother was sitting in the dark crying for the first time in his adult life, because he finally knew. His brother had not died alone. His brother had died held, in a warm room, by a woman who had not been afraid. And that warmth had not stopped. It had only moved.